Hey guys, welcome to Flashbacks. I'm Alex.
I'm Will.
And I'm Ben. I'm a guest from the Superhero Stuff You Should Know podcast.
And we're here today before we get into anything, and you will be seeing Ben in the far future, but like right now, we're gonna cover.
I'll speed into the future. Yes,
We're gonna be like the Flash. We're gonna temporarily travel to the future right now. But anyway, we're gonna discuss the Stephen Amell controversy off the top, and then go into my general
Ooh,
convention experience. So
Mhm.
the Will, do you know about the Stephen Amell controversy?
I've read a little bit on it. I didn't see the actual clip itself, but I definitely saw all of the reaction over Twitter or X or whatever it is now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Ben, you probably
Uh,
me and you've
yeah,
discussed it back and
we
forth.
have discussed
yes.
we have discussed on this, and yeah, I wasn't obviously we didn't know this was going to happen when we're talking about like, hey, like I'll come on the show on flashbacks and stuff, but it's been something that's been obviously on our minds, and we've been talking back and forth about it, especially since you just met him at that same con.
Yeah.
So I'm interested in getting into discussion about that because I know we have a lot to say.
Yeah, definitely. So, just for people that don't know, recently at the Raleigh, the one I went to, but the Raleigh GalaxyCon convention, Stephen Amell was on a panel, and I think someone maybe asked him about the writer's strike, and I actually have his quote right here. I'll pull it up, and then we'll go into kind of the backlash of it and everything. But let me just pull up his quote real quick so I don't misquote him or anything. Just give me 1 second, guys. This is the magic of podcasting right now.
I will say, as you're pulling that up,
Yeah.
that I thought it was a little interesting that this panel was presumably on a Saturday, and yet this video kind of just somebody was sitting on it until like Monday or so, and it is cut off. It
Yeah.
is cut off at the end. I'm like, okay, I'm sure there was other, like, we don't even know what he was asked or what the whole thing is. I'm not
Yeah.
again, this is not to defend what he said so much as just provide extra context for the listeners, but I'm just like, seems awfully convenient that somebody was sitting on this for a bit.
Yeah. That's the
Somebody was
thing
clearly
too.
waiting. Yeah.
And that's what I think is really important with stuff like this is a lot of times in today's world, you guys know we just kind of see headlines
Hmm.
and no one really sees the full context of anything and things get cut off very easily. And from what I could tell online, obviously people were upset about it. But it sounded like one of those sound bites where it was just completely taken out of context. It seems like there was a lot more nuance to what he was saying. Um, but people are going to run with whatever they want to take out of it, of course.
Definitely. So, his actual quote was, I feel like I'm insulated in Hollywood because that's where I live. I feel like a lot of people in this room aren't aware, talking about the people at the panel, aren't
Mhm.
aware of the strike. He said, I support my union. I do, and I stand with them, but I do not support striking. I don't. He continued, I think that it's a reductive negotiating tactic, and I'll definitely go into that more. And I find that's me talking, not him. And I find the entire thing incredibly frustrating. I think that the thinking as it pertains to shows like this show that I'm on that premiered last night, I think is myopic, and I stand with my union. So that was the quote. So my thing, and I'll go into, we'll definitely get into more of it, but I think I even told you, Ben, I
Mhm.
don't like when someone complains about something or like critiques it, but then like doesn't offer another solution. Like if you're gonna go out and be like, well, I think blah blah blah, like it's easy to critique anything and not offer some other like form of solution to it, and that kind of frustrated me a little bit. And how can you really stand with the union if you don't really like based off
Mhm.
this rough quote before he clarified, how can you really stand with the union if you don't support also the strike though?
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a fair point. I think it's also one where it is bad optics and bad
Mhm.
PR when you are someone who seems to be, on the more successful side of things versus the
Yeah.
people who are sort of seen as the SAG members who are the bit part players, the ones who are, still, they're part of SAG, they have acting roles, but they can't live off of acting, and now they really can't live off of acting due to everything that's been going on. So it's particularly bad optics when it comes from somebody in that position, because I'm already seeing it too in terms of the response of just like, well, like it's easy for him to say he's already a millionaire or he's a billionaire or something. Though trust me, he doesn't have nearly as much as like Zaslav, but still, like it's bad optics.
Yeah. Will, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I mean, from the limited information and not seeing the clip, I really like what you say, because I didn't think about it initially. Of he just kind of commented on it without giving any other type of solution or anything from what we read, obviously.
Yeah.
Because it's one thing to critique it, because I don't think necessarily that everyone on the striking side is 100% right with everything that they're doing right.
Mm-hmm.
Which, I think can be a fair take for sure. Obviously, I think they need to get paid more and everything as well. But to not offer any other solution, to not offer like, hey, maybe I can use my platform as a way for us to get to the negotiating table or something with like Stars or somewhere where he has his show now. I think that was the mistake of not offering another solution like you added.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Will brings up a good point that I've been telling to other people, which is the fact that like I don't think he's the only one who feels that way. I don't think it's really that crazy to like express frustration about how you're affected by the strike. I know that again, people are just like, well, it comes from a place of privilege, because like, what about all the people who are, they are doing this for their own livelihoods and stuff. I'm just like, I don't think he's necessarily knocking that. I think it's more of just like he's the first one who's been vocal, who's been part of SAG, to say like, hey, this has been frustrating for being part of the show. He's not the only one who's part of that show. There are several actors part of that show. There's hundreds, thousands of people involved with that show. And I think it's unrealistic to think that he's the only one who feels that way. Same thing with like, his Arrow cast members and stuff. I think people have brought up, well, nobody's like come to bat for him. That says something. Like, yeah, but except for Kirk Acevedo, everyone, no one's really like condemned him either. It's just been kind of like, I'm just like, I feel like if you agree with him, you probably wouldn't be that vocal right now, considering the outcry anyway. So it's one where I'm like, look, is it really that crazy that he's that frustrated with it? I know that, again, like I said, it's bad optics. I don't agree with him. I don't have to agree with him. But I think it's one that has been overblown to the point where I'm just like, this guy didn't say fuck your strike and I support the studios. Like,
you're right.
We're all acting like he's some sort of corporate shill who doesn't give a shit about your livelihoods and wants you all replaced by AI. Like, he never said that. He just says that he, the way I interpret it is like he supports what they're fighting for. He just wished it didn't have to come to this or this specific tactic. And he doesn't like this tactic and how it affected the show. And again, people are just like, oh, boo-hoo for you fucking millionaire. But I'm just like, just because he's a millionaire and he's a star of something doesn't mean that he can't express his frustration about that. Is he wrong about certain things? Sure, but go ahead.
Yeah, and he's not just a millionaire too. He's also an artist. And as an artist, your chief concern, especially once you've made money where you're comfortable with that, is to entertain. So obviously I could see his frustration with not being able to be on the set and film and entertain and stuff like that. He's always struck me as a guy that, do I think he's a top tier actor or anything like that? Not nearly at all, really, but he definitely cares about the art form, right? Kind of in the same way that like maybe a Tom Cruise would, right? Where he's really just there to entertain and he wants to be on the set and do that. And so when you can't do that because of these things going on, I could see from his perspective how that would be frustrating. But I also think you need to step outside of that box a little bit and have a little bit of, I guess, perspective for everyone else and what they're going through.
Sure. Yeah. Like, again, I think his worst offense is tone deaf. His worst offense is not realizing how much this is going to bite. The way he phrased it was going to bite him in the ass, because he could have just said like, it's a frustrating time right now. We can't promote the show, and a lot of people worked hard for this, and like nobody would like. You leak that, and people are just like, yeah, I'm sure he does feel that way. But because he said he didn't support the act of striking, we're seeing what we're seeing.
Yeah. And and I even mentioned this to you yesterday. He has always, from the very beginning, struck me as a guy who is honest to a fault. And I think that like sometimes he says things and he puts his own foot in his mouth. Like, this is not the first. I can't think of a specific example, but I do know in the past, like, he has been like just look like a few weeks ago, like, he has always been very honest, and like the whole thing where he felt like DC like kind of screwed the TV stuff over, and that they don't give a fuck about, and I know I'm not directly quoting, but basically his takeaways, they don't give a fuck about the TV stuff, like the movie people don't really care about, and he was really angry and frustrated about that, like, obviously. So like he's always been this guy, like this isn't anything new.
Right. Yeah. I think there's also a couple other factors at play when it comes to the response that honestly kind of maybe disturbed me more than what he actually said. So like, one of those things is like, I think I don't know if this is something recent or this is something that I think it's more of just in general, like with what we do with celebrities, is we build them up so much, but just like what Green Goblin says in Spider-Man, we love it when they fall too.
Yeah.
And so like we kind of see people like relishing in this, and it could be people who just like didn't like Arrow and were just like hopping on it or something. But I think, again, the reason why I pointed out, like, oh, it seems a little weird that the video wasn't like the full thing. It's just like this minute-long video. And even then, like I noticed in the video, he says, "I support my union," and it sounded like he was about to say something, but the video cut out. And I just, you can kind of just see the dominoes fall of just a lot of people kind of gloating over this in some ways, or people coming up with all these threads about like, here's some other problematic behavior from him, and framing certain things that he said or done that you know, either may or may not be true, or like aren't really, may or may not even really be that bad. But it's you can kind of see like people reveling in it, when I'm just like, can we kind of just reserve this energy for the people they're actually striking against? Like, could we kind of, you know, just reserve this towards the actual problem here? Why are we going after this guy who kind of just disagreed with a tactic and said something that he shouldn't have? But why is this the worst thing that we have to be angry about? So that's one factor. Another factor, I think, with the internet too, is that it's kind of given everybody sort of a feeling of a privilege, that they know everything that's going on in the entertainment industry. And you see this a lot.
Yes.
With the internet, everyone thinks, because people are coming after him too about like, oh, he's scabbing because he's promoting his stuff. I'm just like, yeah, but isn't it, you can't do paid promotion from the studio? That's what I read, you know, like we talked about that.
Yeah, I actually looked into that, and because GalaxyCon wasn't one of the ones that was like struck, basically, they made some sort of deal and actually took away some of the other things in order to kind of align with the whole agreements and stuff. So they were, everything was above board in that regard with all the stuff that he was doing at that convention. So I mean, like that, you know, obviously like that was all above board. So yeah,
that's good. Yeah, because the way I see it, like San Diego Comic-Con is like the Comic-Con for corporates right now. It became the corporate Comic-Con. But like these other smaller ones, like the one you went to, like those are really for the fans.
Yeah.
So like if he's going to be there and promote stuff, that's really for the fans, not because he's really getting paid at all by Stars or CW, even about Arrow and stuff. Because it's, again, it's a mess, because it's just like, well, if they can't even promote their own stuff, but they're also protesting because of residuals being low, isn't this also going to affect the residuals? Like it's all a mess and stuff, because it's still owned by all the corporations. But anyway, like again, everyone seems to think they know more about it, and you see that a lot. You know, you see that sometimes with, you know, my podcast, with some of the comments, or people talking about the news. And I think the quickest way to know whether or not someone actually knows what they're talking about in the entertainment industry is if they say, "Hey, I haven't read all the details. I don't know everything." I'm like, that's a professional. That's someone who knows what they're talking about, as opposed to someone who's just like, "I know exactly how it works." I'm just like, dude, if you think you know how it works, I'd love to see your movies. You know, it's this entitlement. Yeah. Go ahead, Will.
So I guess to wrap this part of the segment up here, did Stephen Amell fail this city?
No, I was actually going to get into. He clarified more about like what he actually said. Ben, to your earlier point, that I support my union, I do, and I stand with them is what he actually said. This doesn't need much clarity. My support is unconditional. I stand with them. And then the other thing, what I actually said, I do not support striking. I don't. What this means in full context, I understand fundamentally why we're here. My off the cuff use of the word support is clearly contradictory of my true feelings and my emphatic statement that I stand with my union. Of course, I don't like striking. Nobody does, but we have to do what we have to do. What I said, I think that this is a reductive negotiating tactic, and I find the entire thing incredibly frustrating. In full context, I am an actor, and I was speaking I don't know how to say this word, but anyway, for over an hour, basically, it's talking a long time. I emote, but I certainly don't think these issues are simple. Our leadership has an incredibly complicated job, and I'm grateful for all they do. Despite some of my terrible early acting work, I assure you I am not a robot. From to your earlier point, Will, from an intellectual perspective, I understand why we are striking, but that doesn't mean it isn't emotionally frustrating on many levels for all involved. And then continued in the comments. I was just seeing what else, if there's anything else really. Despite saying he didn't blah 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 blah. Okay, that was basically that was basically like the long and short of it. But
so did you guys see any of the memes that came out about this?
There's been memes.
Yes, there have.
Okay.
There was one where Oliver was facing off against Moira or whatever, and they were saying that he had basically become Moira Queen because she like just went along with Malcolm Merlin and all that stuff.
That's hilarious.
I've seen just a lot of people posting the Grant Gustin over the Oliver grave.
Oh yes, a classic.
It's like why create a new one? Just keep regurgitating that one.
So to go into some of the other co-stars that have kind of had a backlash to what he said, one of the guys, and I don't know if you're familiar with him, Ben, I don't know how far into Arrow you are, but the guy who plays the dragon, Kirk.
Yeah.
Maybe you mentioned him earlier, but he's his comment in response to all this is this fucking guy he wrote on social media with 2 middle finger emojis.
Like I said, he's the main one who's been speaking out.
It fits though, man. It so fits with how that guy, like, how he looks, his presence and everything. I could definitely see that guy saying this.
I'm kind of wondering how they lasted 2 seasons together, if that's the case.
Honestly, yeah.
I was trying to explain that. I was actually talking to Amanda earlier. I'm like, just because people work together on something doesn't mean they're friends. Like, they could think of all your coworkers and everything. Like, you're not friends with all of them.
Yeah, no, totally. But I was wondering if, like, is there animosity now because of the statement, or was there already stuff before and this was just kind of it was the powder keg and this was the match? That's that type of thing.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But the original Reverse Flash, the blonde one, Matt Leshner.
Matt Leshner.
Yeah. He also reacted, though didn't mention Amell by name. He said, "Still waiting on that comprehensive list of totally non-reductive negotiating tactics we get to employ now." He posted on social media, said, "Thank God for superheroes. Any second now."
Yeah, because he is on the lines. I haven't looked at Kirk Casaveto's social media, but I've looked at Matt Letcher's, and he's right out front of Warner Brothers Studios picketing and stuff. So, like, I'm sure this is, though I don't think he ever worked with Stephen Amell and stuff. It was always Tom Cavanaugh's Reverse Flash, but still,
Yeah.
Yeah. But
a lot of the cast was out on the front lines too, man. Like Grant Gustin, especially. I've seen him out there a lot. Yep, Katie Lotz.
Yeah, Katie Cassidy as well.
Yeah. I know that Amell did say, before I forget this, he did say, don't whip any hard fruit at me if you see me on the picket line. So he is alluding to he's probably going to go strike with his fellow co-stars, though. Too,
probably will. By the time this gets released. Yeah, like by the time this gets released, there'll probably be some social media posts and stuff, and the usual people are going to be like, "Oh, he's just doing it for PR. He doesn't believe in it." And I'm just like, this is just, be angry at who you're protesting against, because all this does is create more division. Yeah. I think the people who might have already not really given a shit about the strike, the people you see online who are just like, "Oh, these are just a bunch of spoiled actors and stuff." Like, I don't think this really helped things from their perspective. I don't think you really recruited.
Be angry at Bob Iger.
Like, it's one of those like weird things to me as well, where I'm just like, there's a nuance to this, guys. Like, he didn't say fuck your livelihoods. I want AI to take over your jobs, but we're all acting like he did, and it's.
Can you imagine? It'd be amazing.
It would, but then we would have a much different conversation. It'd be like, how high was he? Like, what the fuck is going on with him?
How much did he get into that bar before he went on that panel?
I know.
Nah, man, I think he was on some vertigo.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of like guys, like, let's look, because the headlines are all like, he doesn't support like SAG-AFTRA. I'm just like, I get what you mean, and I get that, you know, what Alex was saying about like, hey, like, I don't get how you support the union while not supporting, you know, the strike or the act of striking. But like, it just creates this narrative, like suddenly he's like this corporate shill that is like working for it was some sort of scab and stuff. I'm just like, guys, either he's a scab with a really bad strategy who is just publicly just outing himself to everybody that he's doing this, or he's just kind of a little careless and honest to a fault, like Alex was said, about his own feelings and is saying stuff that probably other people feel, but also probably even more afraid than ever to ever vocalize.
Yeah, you don't say that stuff out loud, Amell. Come on.
Again, it could have just been much better ways to phrase it at the convention. You know, just saying like, "Hey, it's just been a frustrating time," you know, and for everybody at heels, and like that's it. He didn't have to go further into it. I'd also be interested to see a full video too of what was said. Not necessarily to say like it would change everything, but I just, again, there's something suspicious about how he says, "I support my union," and then that was it at the end. Like, it literally sounds like he's cut off at the end of the video, and I'm like, I don't know about this. Somebody was clearly trying to do something.
Does anybody know, was Grant Gustin also on the panel? Because I know they were at the same con together. So I'm just curious to see if he was there.
So I was actually there, and as far as I know, they did separate panels. So yeah, like he had his own thing, because I remember seeing, like, I didn't get to go because of the weird time frame of it, and also I didn't want to spend my whole time in panels necessarily, because I knew I was going to meet them anyway, and so I was just like, much to my regret now, because of the whole Stephen Amell news thing, I could have been there and been like, "Hey guys, I can clarify this for everybody. I actually saw it, but you know,
you have failed this podcast."
Yeah.
You never know what shit's gonna go down.
Yeah, exactly. I got that exclusive with seeing the Flash movie early, and then I completely dropped the ball with missing this big news story.
Clearly, this is the important one. Come on.
No one gives a fuck about that Flash movie.
Clearly,
I actually liked it.
Yeah, I liked it too. It's just like,
we all liked it. It's just,
yeah, I agree. I know.
Man, it was a bomb. Yeah.
Jesus.
It was. I think social media has been a lot harder on it than the movie deserves, but I agree.
But
yeah, and I also think in general it's just been healthier to, because there was a time, I was telling this to Alex, there was a time leading up to the Flash where I'm just like, hey, I'm going to try to avoid spoilers by not signing into Twitter, by not signing into the podcast Instagram, and then now I look back with very fond memories of my mental health for those 2 weeks, and I'm like, you know what, I should go back to that.
There you go.
Yeah.
Just to not get frustrated every single time I read a bad take, you know?
Definitely.
Somebody jumping to conclusions about something that I'm just like, I refuse. I refuse to have an emotional reaction about something that I don't know a lot of information about. I'm sorry.
That's fair.
I'm not going to join in on this.
Yeah.
So anyway, free of all that controversy. Also, before I get to that, maybe you should go to Threads. I feel like everybody's going to Threads recently, and mass leaving, like max exodus from X, as it's called now. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's even Instagram though. It's even Instagram with some stuff where I'm just like, especially like news ones with like graphics, and you know it's all twisted sometimes and shit. I'm just like, nope.
Yep.
Sorry, mute.
And then you have to trust Meta with all of your data as well. And
well, you know, we got this covered in the Comic Cave, or two very reputable news sources. So rumor mills online, those comic fan pages that love
Fandom Wire. Fandom Wire will jump through hurdles to find some way to throw Gunn under the bus if it has nothing to do with him.
Yes. Also, moth culture.
Go ahead. What?
Also, moth culture. That's what
yes.
Oh wow. But yeah,
Fandom Wire tried to throw Gunn under the bus by being like, the guy who did Blue Beetle almost did a Bane movie. Therefore, this is Gunn's fault. I'm like, wait, what?
Well,
Block. Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anyway.
How was the convention otherwise?
It's pretty great, actually. So for those of you guys who don't know, so well, you're muted, buddy. There you go. But yeah, so anyway, for those you guys who don't know, I was recently at the GalaxyCon, and it was I think we lost him, but we'll just keep going.
He'll be back
anyway,
in a flash.
Yeah, in a flash. But so I dressed up as Green Arrow. My wife dressed up as Black Canary. It was one of my first big conventions that I went to like that, on that kind of scale. And it was like obviously super crowded. Like I think I saw a report that they made like $82 million at that convention.
Oh, damn.
Does not surprise me with how many stars and everybody that they had. They had the Boy Meets World guys. They had it's so funny. They had I thought they had all the Backstreet Boys. They had what they were calling the duo of the Backstreet Boys. So like 2 people, but I think Will's coming back right now, so we'll go ahead and think it's connecting audio. We'll just leave this in.
Will, you missed the Backstreet Boy talk.
Yeah, Backstreet Boys, man. Backstreet Boys were at 2 of them. The duo were at GalaxyCon.
Will
does not care.
Yeah, Will's like, whatever.
I think I missed all of that.
I was just going over the people that were at the convention. I was saying it made 80. I think it's like 82. I actually have an image of it on my phone. I think they made like 82 million dollars or something. There was a lot of people there. But let me see actually. Yeah, generate 8.5 million is what it says.
8.5 million.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys could see this. This is Ben. Have you you've been to conventions, obviously. What's the biggest convention you've been to?
Ooh, I mean, probably WonderCon.
Yeah,
I'd say WonderCon in Anaheim.
Look at this. This was our view of down in the dealer's room, like ants right there. That was how many people were down there at one time. Like it was like in the millions.
A lot of body odor.
Yeah, honestly. But yeah, so I dressed up as Green Arrow. It was really fun. The suit it held for the most part. It started ripping at certain points,
shit.
like the gloves, and then unfortunately the butt area, that's the only way I know how to describe it. So
I think you're just too cheeked up, man. I don't know.
Couldn't contain it. But I got pictures of that to show people, actually. Not that, but like the actual thing. But it's not, you guys aren't going to see anything too bad. This one, show it just for the full experience.
Show your ass, why don't you?
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know if you guys can see that, but that's like the you see the stitching right there that my wife had to do. We're in the cosplay lounge,
cosplay emergency section,
and she was sitting there stitching it, and then it kept ripping. And I was at a certain point, I was like, man, I was talking to the suit. I'm like, you just gotta hold together until I meet Amell and Gustin, and then we're good. You can fall apart. I don't care.
You probably should have asked Amell if his suit ever ripped like that.
Dude, that was the other thing. They don't tell you that about the photo ops. So and
it's
my
real
wife
quick, right?
It's really quick. So I know I originally had said before that I was going to get the whole bump in from Gustin. I didn't get it, guys. It was so fast. I didn't even get to really tell him about like that I met someone that knew him before he was famous. It was like I started to, and he's like, oh really? But it was like the photo was done. I walked up, Amell said like, oh, like he noticed like the suit, obviously. He's like, oh, the beard, like he's like, I can never, he's like, nice beard, I could never grow it, or so is what he said to me. So that was pretty great. And he was, you know, he say what you want about him, he definitely, and this is even evident way back in the day when he was one of the first people to interact with fans with the Facebook lives and stuff like that in his dressing room in between takes and stuff like that. He has always been there for the fans. Gustin was also cool, but I mean, I had started talking to him, but that photo's so quick. Basically, it's just like, all right, take your photo, keep moving, kind of thing. So it was over before I knew it. So I'm like, that's fine. My wife told me just get an autograph next time. You'll have more time to talk, and you'll probably get an opportunity to actually like get that bump in. But it gives me something to work towards. I'm starting this podcast up, so like hopefully I can meet some of the other stars and then do that, and then that can be something I work up to over the course of this thing. I feel like it's too soon. I haven't earned it yet, so like so we're gonna get there, guys.
But one question though, so do you think that the reason Amell said what he said on the panel could have been because he was still frustrated that he could not grow a beard like yours?
That's exactly what happened.
You could have caused all this.
He's like, I'm so frustrated about this goatee. I mean, the actor strike.
It's myopic. It's a frustrating tactic.
The myopic beard. I hate it.
Beard envy.
Amell has meltdown over his lack of facial hair at Raleigh convention.
Where's his publicist? We can finally find a way out of this.
They have failed to comment. Apparently, their representatives have not talked to Yahoo News recently. I'm like, bro, you need to get them on the phone. It's not a good look.
It's really not.
Yeah. He actually got asked about the beard. I met a guy. There was another thing is I met a lot of really cool people. When I was dressed as it. It's kind of like a big like flag basically waving to be like, I'm a really big fan, obviously, of this character. So people would like approach me. It's mostly dudes because it's a dude show. But they would be like, hey, like one of the guys approached me. He's like, oh, you got it. Like he was doing like this, like, oh, you got it, like the comic book Green Arrow. I was like, thanks, man. And then he was saying, like, I think he asked me too. He's like, did you grow it for the cosplay? I'm like, no, dude. I'm like, I'm not that committed. I just have this anyway. But yeah,
you should have said cool. Yes.
Yeah, I'm so committed to this cosplay. I'm only gonna wear it like once. Yeah, it's really hard. But yeah, and so he asked me about like what my favorite season was. I told him season 2 and 5, for obvious reasons, and then it was just it's cool talking to other fans of that show. And most people are like, oh, it's like that's badass and stuff like that. Some people even asked me and my wife just not even to take pictures with us, but just to take pictures of our cosplay like together, which I thought was like really cool too. It's like,
that's awesome.
It's really cool to be noticed and stuff. And then it was funny. My wife said whenever she was separated from me, like when she was by herself, she got noticed more as Black Canary than it was with me, I guess, because she said, yeah, people just kept looking at your suit, and then like they would notice me afterwards, but be like, oh, like Green Arrow and stuff like that. So I
think maybe because they're recognizing yours from the show, but hers was more traditional, right? The traditional comic book Black Canary, from what I remember seeing. Yeah, so like maybe that's a factor.
Yeah, definitely. And then there were some little kids that one of them noticed the suit, and like I think my wife asked him, it's like, what's your favorite superhero? And he said Green Arrow, and I said, that's right, buddy. So that was really cool. The thing they don't tell you about these suits, and I kind of knew it going in, but like obviously the big crowds and everything, but you get like on the mask, the actual Domino mask, you get like sweat. So like I had like solid like sweat right here, and it would make the stuff kind of bunch up. So I had to constantly like do like this and like move the mask back, and like so that wasn't too fun. I know in Canada it's really cold. It was not cold in that convention center. It was so hot. I was wearing an undershirt, and it was like I had jumped into the pool or something after I got out of that suit.
No, and just like Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man said, sometimes they ride up in the crotch a little.
Yeah,
or rip in the butt area.
Thing. Yeah, the sleeves. There was like something going on with the inside of the sleeves. And it was like I was being stabbed on my arms like the whole time, like where it even limited my movement. I felt kind of like in some way like the 89 Batman, where I could move my neck obviously, but the rest of me was very limited range. Like I could move around like this, but it's like almost robot movements going on.
And you wouldn't expect that with that suit, because it seems like, oh, like that would be more comfortable than like a rubber bat suit, but still has its own downsides to that. I remember with mine with the bat suit on mine because I did the black makeup thing. But the thing is, my black makeup was just like kind of that like watery black paint that can like easily wash off. But the problem is when you sweat, then it starts dripping down, so it looks like I'm crying like black tears down my face as I'm walking around as Batman. I'm just like, this is not a good look. Yeah, if anyone wants to do the black eye makeup thing, don't get that type of thing because that thing's just gonna drip.
Unless you're trying to do the Pattinson look from the Drifter, like unless you're trying to go for that look, then go for that. But yeah, otherwise that was why I didn't even bother with that because I'm like, I'm gonna sweat and it's gonna start coming down. Eventually, I'm gonna wanna. And there was like you can see in the picture, I pulled the mask down because I'm like, I want my actual face to be in the picture. Like I'm only meeting these guys foreseeably once, and so like it's one of those situations. And before we move on to the actual episode, we're gonna wrap this up soon. But what I wanted to say is that I actually got the opportunity to meet Mike Grell, and it was totally unexpected. For those of you out there who don't know who Mike Grell is, he wrote the iconic the iconic story Longbow Hunters, which was a story in the 80s which had an aged Green Arrow in it, took a much more grounded approach to his world, actually introduced the character of Shadow. He moved to Seattle, I believe, and it was like I think he was tracking down like a serial killer, some like espionage stuff. It's been a while since I've read it, but it's a really solid, really good story. And
it's a big inspiration as well on the show.
Oh yeah, definitely. And so I actually saw him, and it was one of those moments where I came up to him and he has all of his art behind him and everything. And I guess I can show the picture just so people out there have the full context. And I don't know how great this is gonna look, but that nice. Was me in the suit right there. So he whenever I came up and approached him, like I said, oh, like I'm a big fan, and like he immediately shook my hand and he's like, oh, I can tell is what he said back. So that was pretty great. And the person, I was like, hey, can I take like a picture? And one of the representatives next to him said, oh sure. And like they told me to come behind the table, and he was finishing up on something, and I got to shake his hand. I said, hey, like, do you want me to pay for this? He's like, oh, I don't charge for pictures or anything. So like, that was really nice. It was really nice. Just, I was telling my wife, I did love meeting Amell and Gustin, but I think that one, because it was unexpected and because I actually got to talk to the guy, I much more enjoyed that particular experience. So like the unexpected, like surprise stuff is always the best kind of things at these kind of conventions.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
and to be somebody who is such a big influence on the Green Arrow character. Like without him, you don't get Stephen Amell, you don't get the Arrow show at all.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so we are going to go ahead and wrap this up. You guys will see Ben in a few months. We're doing this whole 2 episodes a month thing, so you will see him some point in the future. But for right now, you get this sneak preview, and we are going to go ahead and wrap this part up. And I will stop the recording coming up right here, and you guys look forward to the future episode we're going to review, which is The Man in the Yellow Suit. So
sweet.
I'm going to go ahead. I'm Alex.
I'm Will.
And I'm Ben.
All right. And we will see you soon in the Speed Force. Hey guys, welcome to Flashbacks, a Flash Rewatch podcast. I'm Alex.
I'm Amanda.
And today we are reviewing episode 2 of season 1, Fastest Man Alive. I'm going to do a quick, like a brief kind of description, and then we'll get into, I usually like to ask the guests, like, what they like about the Flash, or like that kind of thing, or when they got into it, or any kind of fun, like, backstory type thing that they might have with any of that. But I'll just go ahead and get into the description really quick. So anyway, Barry experiences a setback while pursuing robbers. Joe is upset with Barry for taking the law into his own hands. Iris becomes more intrigued by the red streak. That's the synopsis. Do you think that was a good synopsis?
I think it left out a lot of details. It's a good overview. Is that like the little like detail they have on the the episode description that they have?
I think it came from like Rotten Tomatoes or something.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was just one of those things like, I don't want to get too bogged down with which is, the description with this one. So I guess we'll go into in the previous one I kind of went into like my fandom for the Flash. Like, what is your fandom? Also, this is my wife. We're married, so I kind of know what her answer might be, but I want to hear like you guys to hear it. So, what is your fandom?
Okay, so my first experience with the Flash was obviously like the Flash TV show. I did not grow up watching the Justice League.
The CW one, right?
Yes.
Okay, just checking.
The only like I knew Batman existed, but my only Batman I cared about was Batman and Robin because it is superior. I was much more of a Spider-Man girly. Didn't care about any other Marvel stuff, just Spider-Man. So what actually happened was I was just on Netflix one day randomly watching something and I started watching Arrow.
Oh.
I didn't know it was DC. I didn't know he was a superhero. I thought it was so cool. And I vividly remember talking to my best friend about it, about how cool this random show I just found was. I watched that, and then they had Barry on that episode, and I realized they had a spin-off show, and I was like, oh, cool, I'll watch that. I didn't even realize that he was a DC superhero.
Who, Arrow or...
Either.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then I think one of my brothers maybe told me that I was watching, like, superhero shows, and I was like, oh, wild.
I could...
Yeah, I also... To be fair, though, when it comes to the amount of attention I paid to stuff like that,
yeah,
I didn't know Smallville was a Superman show. For like forever. Actually, my mom may have told me. Growing up, her brothers were really into it.
Yeah.
And she obviously watched that stuff, and so she watched Smallville because she she knew it was a Superman show. She thought it was interesting. Yeah. So this is like my first introduction into like, not this first time watching it obviously, but the first time that I viewed it was my first introduction into the Flash and really into DC as a whole.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
I love how you're saying interesting as if you didn't already know this.
That's not I guess like I'll go into what I'll just get into what I thought in a minute of what you just said. But that was a weird thing I just said. But what I thought you were when you went going back before I say that, sorry. The whole Smallville thing, I kind of get that because like when I was younger, it took me a minute to realize like, oh, this is like a Superman thing because I didn't know what Smallville was. And so, like, I started hearing, like, Clark Kent and Lex, and like, back then, they kind of hid, like, their roots a little bit more, and with Arrow, I could definitely see how somebody that's not into the comics would be, like, because it's not even called, like, Green Arrow, and it's not super hero-y in the first season, or even really the second season, like, it is, but it's very, like, grounded, like serious stuff, like, it's not very comic booky, like the Flash show is, but... The reason that I was surprised by what you said was I thought that you were going to mention more like our backstory with the Flash and like that kind of stuff, and that's why I was surprised.
Uncle Barry?
Yeah, you want to explain that?
Okay, so shortly after we started dating, so let me preface this by saying Babes has 2 Flash tattoos. Not 1, 2.
I have one on my wrist and one on my left upper shoulder
he
area.
got the second one after we were dating. Like, I went to get my first tattoo and it was a wrist tattoo, and the guy had extra time. Okay, so my second oldest nephew, third old Ethan. Yeah, okay, sorry.
Anyway,
my third oldest nephew. For a while, his dad and him were staying with my mom and I, and obviously, like, my dad works out of town, anyway, they were staying with us, and so I spent a lot of time because I worked at a daycare at the time, and it was the daycare that our nephew went to.
Mm-hmm.
So my brother's first name, so I have two brothers. My oldest brother, we're gonna call him B. My middle brother, his first name's Alex.
Yeah.
And so my nephew we're talking about is B's kid. So my nephew, our nephew, found it really confusing having two Uncle Alexes. And his favorite superhero was the Flash. So shortly after hubby got a Flash tattoo, Riley was convinced, sorry, that's my nephew.
It's
my
okay.
nephew was convinced that my husband, boyfriend at the time, but husband now, was Barry Allen, that he was the Flash, and he called him Uncle Barry, and he would make him give him piggyback rides for hours and make him run around the front yard with him on his shoulders. And yeah, so my husband is Uncle Barry. Yeah.
And also, like, towards the beginning of our relationship, I felt like I was much more Flash obsessed, like, mostly because of the show. But, like, I used to even have, I forgot about this, and I'll probably include some image that's Flash related of the two of us at the end. I've started doing that. I did that with Will and also with Grant in the first episode. I think it's just kind of like a unique kind of thing I can put. I promise we're going to get in the episode in a minute, guys.
Do we have any
But,
stuff that's Flash related?
I'll find something. But anyway,
The only thing I can think of is Riley. I'm sorry.
It's okay. So anyway, I've included like stuff just like, you know, at the end of the episode, where it's just like me and the person that's on there, like from something from the past with like that's like Flash related. So like we'll find something. I'm sure we've been together like a long time. I'm sure I can find something. So anyway, all that being said, are you ready to get into the actual episode, like your thoughts and everything?
Sure, Uncle Barry.
You're silly. But so I really like this episode towards the tail end, and we'll kind of get into this at the end of the review. But three of the things that this episode I usually grade it by at the end is if it delivers on the three things that were above the writer's door. That is something that they needed to include in each episode, which is heart, humor, and spectacle.
Yes.
And so, like, if it checks off all those boxes, it's like a really good episode. So, we'll get that at the end, though. So, what did you think overall of this episode?
I enjoyed it. I obviously enjoy the first, like, few seasons in general. So, one thing about me, I'm a shipper. No matter what media I'm watching, I'm always going to find characters that I think should be together. And I'm going to ship them, and I'm going to be very passionate about them. And for The Flash, my favorite couple was Snowberry. Specifically, early on, I just think that it made a lot of sense. Caitlin and Barry played off of each other, and this kind of had a little bit of, like, Snowberry hinted at whenever... in that
That's
moment
cute.
when Cisco was just like, I haven't seen her get this mad at anybody other than Ronnie. And I'm just like, yeah, because Barry reminded her of Ronnie because they were supposed to be a couple, and it would have made so much more sense than Barry ending up with his sister. But, you know, writers chose to go a different direction. That's fine.
I didn't know if their ship name was Snowberry. That's kind of cute. But
yeah, because it's Barry Allen and yeah.
Yeah, she wasn't that yet though. It was interesting because like obviously that became a thing. Anyway.
Well, she's still Caitlin Snow.
Oh right. So anyway, I was about to get into spoilers, but I assume if you guys are listening to a Rewatch podcast, I assume that you've already seen the whole series, or at least like most of this season. So I like the episode. One thing I noticed, and I guess I'll just get into this because you did mention Iris, is that like. Does she feel like almost a different character in season one?
Early Iris is a better written character. She is more fleshed out. Once she marries Barry, her character is assassinated, and she just stops being an independent woman, and it's really annoying. In my personal opinion. Sorry for spoilers about them getting married eventually, but
again, assume people have watched the whole series.
Yeah.
But my thing is, I noticed that she seemed like Candace Patton, like this role seemed like it fit her a little bit more. Like the kind of like I even commented on it when we were watching it, like, oh, like she's like fun, like she's like kind of like funny and like seems to like later on, and it happens to everyone. They get so serious and so bogged down by all that stuff, and then like she kind of falls into like the worst parts of like when Felicity kind of had that season or so where she was just like they wrote her a bad way. It was like men writing like a woman basically and made her seem like really just unreasonable and stuff like that.
To be fair though, I think that all of them are better written in the early seasons. I love Fun Cisco, and they kind of just stopped making Cisco Fun Cisco. And I understand that a lot of it has to do with the trauma that he experiences later on. And like it makes sense, but they really are at their best early on when everybody's happy and fun and they're enjoying what they're doing. You said it yourself, you miss when Barry was happy.
Yeah.
Like it makes for a more entertaining show. It makes for a less heavy show. And in my personal opinion, you don't have to agree with me. Nobody has to agree with me. Like, you know, you don't have to say that I'm right. I mean, I am. I'm never wrong. But, what?
Nothing, just keep going.
You gonna look me in the eye and tell me that I'm wrong?
You haven't even said what it is yet.
I think a lot of times people want serious media just so that they can seem as though they are above being mindlessly entertained. When media, like plays, things like that, were originally intended for mindless entertainment. The old Roman cliche of bread and circus, circa et panem, like bread and circus.
Yeah.
And media is meant to be a form of escapism, and making it hyper serious takes away from the enjoyment of that. And I think early Flash did a good job of not doing that. And I know I'm a hypocrite when I say that because I criticize stuff like Jersey Shores and the Kardashians because I think that...
That's a little different.
Well, I was going to say, I think that it's trashy and not in like an entertaining way, but I think that reality television shows they seem very exploitive, whereas it takes a lot of artistry to craft something that is amusing, entertaining, while also having a good, like having heart to it, like you said.
Yeah.
And I think The Flash very much excelled at that, and it should have been left being more lighthearted. And as the seasons go on, it tries to become more serious, and I think that it loses its viewership because that's not what people are watching it for. And so to me, it comes off as like poor writing later on, no matter how good the storylines are, because when it comes down to it, you're writing something for an audience, and if you aren't doing it for your audience, it's, you know.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get into that kind of stuff and because I do enjoy, like, even I was telling you I was watching the later episodes, I still always, for the most part, will find something I enjoy about it, but I'd be lying if I didn't say like that it definitely lost something over time. I think, and I'll probably repeat this later on, other people have said this too, and I agree with this sentiment, is that when they did the first season, they kind of like shoved everything into it. Mm-hmm. And like that first season as we'll get more into it, I kind of want to reserve more of like what I'm going to say for later, but I'll just say that first season definitely hit it out of the park, and after that it was almost like, and it was still good, but it's almost like you could definitely tell they were trying to repeat, like you saw much more of like the seams of it later on, like the formula, I guess.
But and to be fair, I do like shows that are formulaic. I like stuff that I know how it's going to happen, that I know it's going to have a happy ending at the end. I like that. There's something really comforting in that.
Yeah.
It could be my mental illness. Like, I have anxiety. And so, like, you know, I rewatch shows because I have anxiety. I get mad at shows when I can't predict the ending, because media is supposed to be, you're supposed to be able to predict things in media. Like, it's not supposed to have really unpredictable plot twists, and movies that do just piss me off because it's not what they should have been, in my personal opinion. And there are people who disagree with me, and that's fine. I'm not a critic. I'm just a girl. Woman. Oh no, West F, that's gross. I'm just a girl.
Okay.
You know? What?
You're very cute.
Yeah. Anyway, no, I really enjoyed this. I really, in particular, I love that Barry is hypoglycemic. I think that's hilarious. As somebody who forgets to eat a lot and then gets really dizzy and almost passes out.
Are you hypoglycemic?
I not often. It used to be a lot worse when I was in high school and I was running cross country and I wasn't eating enough.
Wait, explain this though. I didn't know this about you, and we've been married for like.
You know that I forget to eat all the time.
But I didn't know you were hypoglycemic.
Well, that's what causes hypoglycemia, is not eating enough, because your blood sugar drops because you don't have enough to metabolize. And
it's not like a disease. You just forget to eat.
Yeah, so like there are people who are more prone to be hypoglycemic. Like if you produce too much insulin and it metabolizes too much. I just tend to become hypoglycemic. Like, it's the state you could be because I forget to eat. And when I was in high school, and I was running cross country and I was really active, I was not healthy. But I wouldn't eat a lot and I would forget. And I
You didn't adjust your diet.
No. I remember looking at my mom one day in Walmart, waiting in line to get medicine, and being like, I feel like I'm gonna pass out. And then my mom being like, have you eaten today? And me being like, no. She's like, go sit down, we'll get you food when we leave. And I'm like, okay. But like, nah, like that can be scary sometimes. And if you just keep going when you feel like that, it gets pretty bad. I also really enjoyed kind of how they played with his speed a little bit, like with him running around and I'm assuming talking really fast when Iris was asking him to be honest with her, and he was like talking about
Oh, sorry, because just before I forget, this was, you know that before I've reviewed, like, at least one or two of these episodes in the past on my old YouTube channel, right?
Yes.
So that was one of the things I brought up on my old, before I listened to, or before we reviewed this, I try to go back, and if there's any previous material of something I've already reviewed, I like to go back just to see what past me said about it. Mm-hmm. And so, like, that was one of the scenes I really liked, because, like, she was like, what's going on with you? Like, she got really frustrated with him because he didn't show up for,
they're supposed to meet at Jitters.
Yeah. And so, like, he was using super speed and basically, like bearing his soul out to her and then, like, going right back into place right where he was before and then, like, didn't really say much of anything. Yep. I thought that was really a clever way of doing that.
Yes. Also, this is kind of irrelevant, but I thought about it while you were talking. I think we have photos of us in like Star Lab t-shirts, so you might be able to use that.
That's what I was thinking.
Okay. Anyway, I digress. I did get really mad at Barry in this episode when he told Joe that Joe wasn't his dad, because, like, you know, that pissed me off, because he said it when he was a kid too, and you can just see the hurt in Joe's face.
Oh yeah.
And you know that he was saying it to hurt Joe, not because he actually felt it, and that just feels, because Barry is a very loving character. He loves too much. That's his problem. He's caring. And
isn't he the paragon of love? Sorry, spoilers.
Yes. Like, that's his thing. And I think that as somebody who also cares a lot more than I should about a lot of people. Do I kid Barry Allen? Anyway, as somebody who cares a lot more than I should.
Oh, wait,
people,
are you a Flash fan? Because I know before you said that you were kind of so-so on the Flash. Are you suddenly like a big Flash fan because you identify with him?
It's not that I'm... What do you mean, a big Flash fan?
Because that's what it sounds like with the whole Kenning thing.
No, listen. It's not a compliment. I ken a lot of characters that are questionable.
The Flash is questionable?
No, like Yagami is questionable.
Okay.
Aaron Yeager is questionable.
Oh, okay,
no,
baby.
what I was saying was, as somebody who can relate to that, it's kind of it felt lazy to have him repeatedly, like, using words to intentionally hurt somebody. and lash out.
It was very childish.
Yes, and he's like he's like supposed to be 25, 26.
I thought 22. He's supposed to be. He just looks young. I don't know. For the record, I don't know. It's just the vibe I got.
Iris is in grad school, and they're the same age. And if Iris is in grad school, then she's at least out of college. She didn't start grad school so he's in his 20s at least. And I feel like I stopped doing that when I was like a teenager.
Also, to be fair, he has gone through a lot of trauma, and sometimes like trauma like that can stunt like emotional growth.
Hi, yeah.
I wasn't talking about you, but okay.
Yeah. I know, but I feel like as somebody who has proven to be very thoughtful, proven himself to be thoughtful, it just felt really callous, and a little bit lazy to me. I thought it was a really nice parallel though, so like take me calling it callous and lazy with a grain of salt, because like I said, beautiful parallel.
I will say that the reason why I didn't like that he did that, but he is saying that out of a place of, and he even says that in that scene, like, he's being selfish, but at the same time very selfless, because he wants to save and protect people. It's not like, oh, you told me something I can't do, that's like a selfish thing he wants to do. Like, he even says it, he's like, if I can save someone, I'm gonna do it. Like, and I really, like, that was one of those lines that, like, speaking of, like, this was a formative show for me, that was something that I identified with, to where, like, if I can help someone or do something, like, I'm gonna do it, within my power, whatever is within my power to do, like, I will do that. And so, like, I didn't like how he went about it, but it's one of those things where it's complicated, right? Because he is doing a selfless thing, but he's being very, like,
reckless.
Yeah, very reckless with how he is, like, talking to people, because there could have been a way that he's like, look, I am an adult now, and this is something I need to do.
Or he could have been like, yeah, you're right, I'm your kid. The man who is selfless, who raised somebody who wasn't his. The man who, like, goes out of his way to keep people safe, to protect people. I'm your kid, I'm doing what you taught me.
Yeah.
That would have been in my personal opinion, that would have been a better way to handle that. But I think that their whole goal was to draw parallels between Barry's childhood, because it's the same thing that he said. And then he later found out, why Joe had been keeping him away from his father, and it was,
Yeah, it was because he didn't want him to basically, like, see him like that, like, see him in prison. And, like, Joe being a selfless person and not wanting him to, like basically, like, not like his dad, he didn't reveal that to him, and Barry actually ran away, went to the prison, and that's how, he basically had that whole thing. And something I told you in the comics that I'm glad they didn't do in the show was Barry's dad dies in the prison, and I'm glad they didn't do that. And I know that he dies later, obviously, because they didn't know what to do with his character, and he kind of left, which still irks me. I'm sorry, guys. Spoilers again. We will get to that in the future. I'm going to try to stop doing that as much as I can. But, yeah. So, like, that was really cool, seeing, like, into his past, seeing, like, that whole thing, and seeing what a good parental figure Joe was to Barry, and that, like, what obviously would be a really difficult time for, like, any kid, especially, like, with such weird stuff. Like, he finds the murder board, or serial killer board, as, like, people have called it.
It's a murder board. It's just a
about Barry's dad, basically, in the whole case.
Can I go on a tangent?
How long of a tangent?
It'll be short.
Okay.
Do you want to know what I associate murder boards with?
What? Teen Wolf.
Specifically Styles. I love that you knew that.
Well, I was just thinking, I'm like, what would she reference? And then, like, in my head, I'm like, oh, yeah, of course.
It's Styles. I was just like, yeah, sorry. That was
good.
all I wanted to say.
But, yeah, like, I guess we'll get to the, she's wearing a Teen Wolf, like, lacrosse hoodie right now. But, I guess we'll get into what was probably one of the weaker elements of this episode. You already knew what I was gonna say. What did you think of the villain?
I actually wish he hadn't offed himself. I think he could have been interesting later on. I think that his reasoning was compelling.
I have a thing about that. So, like, what she's referring to, obviously, if you've seen the episode, is that, like, at the very end, Barry finds, like, he has to find the prime clone because this guy can make multiple versions of himself. And so, like, he finds it, and then, like, the guy is, like, I think, like, falls out the window, right?
Yeah.
And then he's about to pull him up, but then, like, another arm reaches out and, like, does he make him drop him?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't even connect that. Wow. I'm the host of this show, and I didn't even realize.
Yeah, like, I don't think he falls out the window. I'm pretty sure, like, he, like, runs out the window. Like,
oh, okay, so
yeah,
he
he's
made it. Oh, okay, okay.
Yeah, he's, like, trying to, like,
unalive
himself. Yeah. And Barry's trying to save him, but he doesn't want to be saved. But what I was talking about, like, his motive was, I think, like, his motive for, like, the crimes he was committing was super compelling.
Yeah.
So, long story short, this dude, Stag, which I call him Stag because I can't remember his first name because I don't care.
Simon.
Anyway, this dude, Stag, was, stole his research in, like, cellular, like, redevelopment, like, like, regrowth, like, organ regrowth, basically. And, which is why he can multiply himself, the villain.
Yeah.
What was his name?
I'm just gonna call him. I think it's like Deacon Black.
I don't think it was Deacon.
Denton.
No, it was a weird name.
Anyway, just
yeah,
Multiplex.
Mr. Black. Okay, Multiplex. Yeah, the villain Multiplex. So basically, what had happened was, he was working for Stag. His wife was super, super sick, like dying, waiting for a transplant. And so he decided that if he couldn't get her on the list for transplant, couldn't get her a transplant, he was going to make her an organ. So Stag steals his research and fires him before he can do that. His wife dies. He has to bury his best friend. Then he realizes he has these powers, and so he's going to use them to make Stag pay. He's going to kill Stag because he had to bury his best friend. And you know what? I'm a hoe for vengeance. I'm a hoe for retribution and justice. So, like, yeah, no, Barry should have let him do it.
It's not that kind of show. But anyway, like, it was interesting seeing seeing that. Like, he is very much a generic. His backstory is more interesting than the character himself, is what I would say.
Yeah, he's a sympathetic villain.
Yeah.
That I think they very well could have, like, if they had been able to catch him, they could have rehabilitated him, whatever, however you want to phrase it. And he could have been, like, a valuable member of the team in a way that a lot of other villains aren't. But it would have been like a Frost situation, you know?
Yeah. Anyway, the like this whole thing with I guess like going back to Simon Stagg. So like one of the guys, his basically the guy that's under Simon Stagg had set up for him to be killed, and so like that
Head of security.
Yeah, and so like he gets killed, and that I'm using that to kind of wrap around to him and Harrison Wells have like a negative history with each other. They don't really go into it that much.
They're competitors.
Yeah.
Basically, like they're both big in the science community.
Oh, okay. But some of that stuff, some of those insults were pretty cold, though.
Don't stand.
Yeah, or yeah, you know. So, don't get up. Like I was just like Jesus, and then like I liked like Wells's thing about like it's like which one is it? It's like philanthropist,
humanitarian,
or the other thing that I can't pronounce for some reason.
Philanthropist.
Yeah, it's like I can't remember which one you're pretending to be, and I was just like that was a really good line. But yeah, like there's some. Speaking of friction, there's also some friction between him and Joe before, like, he has to go talk to Joe. It's like, did you know that, like, this was going to happen? And, like, we obviously know that there's more to Harrison Wells, this version of him. Anyway, I'm going to stop doing that, guys. I'm sorry. But, I think that Joe is starting to realize that there's maybe more. And he's like, did you know that this would happen? And he's like, I had my suspicions, kind of thing. And so that was like a key moment. And so like we're starting to get keyed more into who Harrison Wells is. Obviously we had that reveal in the last episode of him standing up. inside the vault thing.
Yep.
With the whole newspaper article and everything that comes into play a lot later with the Flash vanishes and Crisis thing. And so in this one, he talks to Joe and he's like, he's gonna fail if he basically feels doubt, like doubts his enemy. So like
Doubts himself.
Yeah, you doubting him like is not helping. Like you need to go and like reaffirm this, otherwise he's gonna fail.
He's gonna get killed, basically.
Yeah, he's gonna get killed. And so like that's why whenever Joe came back and kind of like said for once like listen to me and kind of like, because the speech like that the actor that plays Joe did, I think his name is Jesse L. Martin, did, was so like, he's such a good actor that with that scene the character is putting on a performance with a speech. I know he believes it to an extent, but it's more like he needs his son
to believe it.
Yeah, to live. And so like even after that, like he was like, how was that kind of thing? Like after you know, Barry puts on the suit, which I actually really like. Barry is so, speaking of the suit, Barry is so sloppy with like having his, it drove me crazy. It's like the first scene having like his whole cowl down and he's out in the open. I'm like, what are you doing?
He's
like,
moving so fast, nobody's gonna see him.
No, like he'll stop. Remember when he stopped and he had to grab those clothes? And it's like, how long until you think he realizes that he's still in his suit? Like, Barry, I know it's like your second day on the job, but like, what are you doing? Like, what if somebody walked by and you're wearing that whole suit? Like, what's your plan?
I don't know, man.
Yeah, I was just like, Jesus. But yeah, like it's just like little fun stuff like that where it's just, I guess that's relatable though too. Like if any of us had superpowers, I'm sure like we wouldn't be like have to be 100%. Like you would slip up occasionally and like.
Oh, bro, I have such a mouth. Everybody would know.
But yeah, anyway, it was just cool seeing that, and then I guess going into some of the fun moments. One of the other moments I liked, and then obviously you can do like moments you like too. But one of the things I really liked was at the beginning doing that kind of, I think the X-Men movies did this too with Quicksilver, but having the whole like he's saving people from that fire and like you just see that image of like them like, you know, almost like they're launched like forward and everything.
Yes, and they're like, what?
Yeah, that was like a thing that was in one of the X-Men movies, and it's really cool in this too. I really like that.
Which version of Quicksilver? I know it's
the
irrelevant, but like, is it
the one from the Fox movies? So like the Evan Peters one, the one that people actually care about.
We love Evan Peters. I'm sorry, I love Evan Peters. Continue. That was all I wanted to know.
He's better than the one they had in the Avengers movie. But anyway, still salty that they didn't have him be Quicksilver in WandaVision. I know they didn't have the rights, but come on, guys.
Well, I mean, you know, they had him pretend for a little bit.
Yeah, anyway, so like I really like that. I liked like obviously the scene I mentioned earlier where he's going around you know, Iris and basically confessing everything. But I guess the other thing with Simon Stagg we have to mention is the after the Flash logo before the credits where
where Harrison stabs him.
I was gonna say good. I was about to say that. Yeah, where he gets up and he stabs him, because like I watched this differently this time where he's like, because Simon Stagg wants to like basically harness it and like get the Flash. He's like, no, like I need him to be safe kind of thing, which this version of Harrison Wells, and I obviously you guys have the internet, you know he's the Reverse Flash. Like this one versus the other ones in the future, which I'm not going to go into. There are different versions in the future. That's all I'm going to say about it. Is that this one actually cares about Barry, which is like, it makes for like interesting stuff later. This one has like almost a paternal energy towards Barry, and even like you said, towards Cisco too. Like that's what makes the season 1 version of Reverse Flash such an interesting villain, is that he has that history with him, which we'll get more into in the future episodes. But like I remember watching this and just like, I don't know if it clicked yet with me like who he was, but I knew like I was just really fascinated. I think I might have thought like this is the Reverse Flash maybe, or just a villain. I don't know if maybe that clicked in my head yet. I'm not sure. But
watching it from a perspective of not knowing anything about the Flash, it was like confusing why he wasn't telling them. And so you just kind of suspected that he was up to something.
Oh yeah, like
You
he's
know?
he's definitely the antagonist. Like if you're watching and you've seen more than one show, I guess, like you know like the language of television. Like you know like okay, clearly like when those lingering shots with obviously that after credits thing, or not after credits, after logo thing, that like this guy is like sketchy basically.
I like that they just reveal it straight up, and you just know, and you just watch it unravel, because you know, knowing who the bad guy is from the get-go is so nice. There's no anxiety. You're just waiting to see what's gonna happen.
I feel like you're speaking mostly for yourself.
Listen,
You're so cute.
What, do you not agree?
Yeah, it's definitely with modern like modern TV, people don't have the attention span anymore to wait for you to drag something out. Like we mentioned Smallville earlier. Smallville would have dragged a reveal like this out for so long, and that's because it was a product of its time.
Yeah.
Now people don't have the patience for that. Like they need it like, you know, like this, like quicker. I mean, even this to an extent is a product of its time because it does have more episodes. Which I'm fine with. I love the first season.
I would even say it's like a modern thing. I mean, I do think with like binge society, like with like binge culture, which I guess binge culture was becoming a thing in the early 2010s. Because right, when did The Flash come out?
2013, 14, I think.
Yeah, early 2010s.
I was in college by that point.
I was getting ready to graduate high school in 2013. Or I graduated in 2013.
I was about to say, I think this was 2014. But anyway.
Oh my god, I get it. You think I'm old.
Anyway, guys, just ignore her. But,
Sorry, I love him very much, and giving him a hard time gives me joy.
Are you doing that thing that we did on, or I did on the last two Night of the Batman, where I like have to make the disclaimer we love each other? I think it's pretty clear we love each other in this one. We're not at each other's throats. But yeah, anyway, so like I really like this episode. I guess I'll get into the final three things that I think it delivered on.
Okay.
Heart, humor, spectacle. Sorry, I'll get better at just keeping all that clear in my head.
Heart,
I know
humor,
it.
spectacle.
I know it definitely delivered on heart with the stuff with Barry also didn't apologize. We'll get to that in a minute. The heart was like, you know, the whole flashbacks and everything with his dad.
Yeah.
And like the whole thing of realizing, even at the end of the episode, which we didn't really touch on, we'll touch on now, where they have that reconciliation to a point where
but
he
not
gets
a friggin' apology. I'm sorry.
I know he didn't really give him an apology, but like he says, like it's like, well, he's like, I know I'm not your dad. He's like, well,
Your father. I'm not your father.
yeah, not your father. He's like, well, you did like basically all these like touchstone things. Like you stayed up with me because I was afraid of the dark.
You kept me fed and clothed.
Yeah, taught me how to shave, taught me how to drive, and he's like, sounds a lot like a dad to me.
Dropped me off my first day of college.
Yeah, and so like that was obviously delivers on heart right there, just out of the park. Humor, there was there's like some fun moments, like we laughed here and there.
It Barry passing out because he was hypoglycemic was funny. Them realizing he's passing out because he's hypoglycemic is funny.
Like him when they're doing the treadmill thing and then he launches into the boxes with all the
he passed out.
stuff. Yeah.
It's funny. It's all funny. Also, just like Cisco giving, like, you got blood on my suit. Barry's like, well, I think some of it's him. And then like when they made the clone of the guy and
that was such a fake out where they're like before the commercial break where it's like, Barry, you need to get here right now, and like she looks so scared and everything, and then she's like, oh, it's fine and everything. I'm like, you guys, like that's such a what's it called, the bait and switch thing.
It kept you interested though, didn't it?
The first time, but yeah, so that was great. And then the spectacle, like obviously the clones and everything, that final scene where there's that just army that he just launches through and finds the one that's like sweating basically and tackles him. I thought that was like delivered on the whole spectacle. Obviously the saves at the beginning that we mentioned earlier were like, you know, they're just like he's just taking people out of the building at like super speed.
Yeah.
Like delivered on that too. Did you have any other things, or is that about cover it?
I would say it's spectacle, depending on like your definition, but I would say a spectacle was also when he was like running around Iris.
Yeah, I could see that.
The like watching the guy like multiply the first time when you like realize it's like, you know, one guy being multiple guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's it. Unless you had anything else. We do have an outro for this one, unlike the other podcast. But yeah. So, you had anything else? Are you good?
Not good show.
Obviously.
Good episode. Solid episode.
Yeah.
Better than the first one. So.
What? Wait, hold on. What?
The first episode is a lot of like, you know, establishing relationships, and like it's fine when you the first time you watch
It's
it.
so good.
But it's not one that I would want to rewatch. What?
It's so good. Oh my god. I'm gonna have to talk to Will on the next episode about this. Okay. That was like one of my all-time favorites. But it's fine. It's fine. So anyway, I'm Alex.
I'm Amanda.
And we will see you in the Speed Force.